Black CEO denied service at her own dealership, manager fired immediately. Hello everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to hear more meaningful stories. Angela Mitchell was no stranger to power or prestige. At 42, she was the formidable CEO of Mitchell Automotive Group, a sprawling empire boasting a dozen luxury car dealerships across the country. Her latest acquisition, Prestige Motors in Beverly Hills, was the crown jewel, home to some of the most coveted, jaw-dropping vehicles in the world, catering to Hollywood royalty, tech billionaires, and the old money elite who saw seven-figure price tags as mere pocket change. But beneath the gleaming showroom floors and shimmering chandeliers lurked whispers that gnawed at Angela's conscience. Rumors that clients were being judged, dismissed, and downright discriminated against based on their skin color, appearance, or where they came from. Determined to confront the truth head-on, Angela devised a daring plan that would shake the very foundation of her business. She wouldn't simply rely on reports or second-hand stories, she would step into the lion's den herself, disguised and unarmed, to witness firsthand how her new team treated the people who walked through those polished glass doors. This wasn't just a routine inspection, it was a reckoning waiting to unfold. On that decisive morning, Angela slipped into worn blue jeans faded at the knees, a faded t-shirt that had seen better days, and scuffed sneakers that whispered stories of countless miles traveled. She swapped her signature tailored suits and gleaming jewelry for the humble armor of anonymity. Behind the wheel of a modest 2015 Honda Civic, the antithesis of the sleek, million-dollar machines showcased inside Prestige Motors, she pulled into the dealership's pristine parking lot. The contrast was stark. Here she was, the powerhouse CEO reduced to a shadow blending seamlessly into the crowd of everyday customers. Every step toward the showroom was a deliberate plunge into uncertainty, a test of her company's soul. Would the polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers shield her from the harsh realities whispered in hushed tones? Or would the facade crack, revealing the cracks beneath? With a steady breath, Angela crossed the threshold, prepared to face whatever awaited her beyond those glass doors, ready to confront the truth hidden behind smiles and sales pitches. The moment Angela stepped onto the showroom floor, it was as if she had vanished into thin air. The gleaming luxury cars sparkled under the bright lights, but the people who should have been there to greet her, salespeople and staff, acted as if she was invisible. For 3 long, agonizing minutes, she stood silently, watching them engage eagerly with other customers, showering them with smiles, laughter, and offers of coffee. Not a single one spared her so much as a glance. They brushed past her like a ghost, their eyes darting away the moment they met hers. When she finally approached the reception desk, Emily Parker sat poised and polished, her perfect blonde hair and flawless makeup straight out of a fashion spread. Yet, even as Angela waited patiently, Emily barely acknowledged her presence. When she did, it was with a frosty, dismissive sneer, her voice dripping with condescension as she cut to the chase. If you're here about a job, applications are online. The biting sarcasm of, honey, slipped casually from her lips. An insult cloaked in fake sweetness. Angela, the very owner of this empire, was reduced to an unwanted outsider, an intruder not worthy of even the smallest courtesy. But beneath the sting of rejection, she remained composed, her calm professionalism a stark contrast to the cold dismissal she endured, fueling a fire of resolve deep within her. From across the showroom, David Reynolds had been watching the interaction with a calculating gaze, his lips curling into a thin, insincere smile as he sauntered over, draped in an impeccably tailored suit. His every step screamed entitlement and superiority. Without so much as a proper introduction or a welcoming word, he spoke down to Angela with a cold, clipped tone. Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. His eyes flicked over her from head to toe, silently branding her as someone who didn't belong. When Angela calmly expressed her desire to see the luxury sedans, David's fake smile twisted into something far more sinister. Those require serious buyers with pre-approved financing, he declared, emphasizing serious buyers, as if Angela's presence was a joke. The unspoken message was clear, she wasn't one of them. Then, with a chilling coldness, he called over Mark Davis, the hulking security guard, signaling that this problem needed watching. Mark approached with a stern expression, hand resting ominously on his radio, ready to enforce the unspoken rules of exclusivity. The atmosphere thickened, heavy with arrogance and discrimination, as Angela found herself not welcomed as a customer, but eyed as a threat, an outsider in a world that refused to see her as anything else. No sooner had Angela endured the cold shoulder than the entire atmosphere shifted the instant a sharply dressed white man strode through the gleaming glass doors. His polished Italian leather shoes clicked confidently against the marble floor, and the subtle gleam of an expensive watch caught the light as he moved with effortless authority. Suddenly, the staff transformed. Emily's frosty glare melted into a warm, welcoming smile, her voice dripping with genuine enthusiasm as she greeted him. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Prestige Motors. How can we assist you today?" Salespeople practically raced to his side, offering coffee and ushering him into the plush leather chairs, eager to showcase the fleet of luxury vehicles. The contrast was stark and undeniable. While Angela had been invisible, ignored, and doubted, this man was treated like royalty. The humiliation cut deep, a brutal reminder that beneath the showroom's opulence lay a ruthless, unspoken hierarchy where worth was measured not by character, but by appearance and perceived wealth. Watching this blatant double standard play out before her eyes, Angela's calm exterior hardened with the icy resolve of someone who had just witnessed a betrayal of everything her empire stood for. Tensions reached a breaking point as David Reynolds, his facade of polished professionalism shattered, stormed across the showroom with eyes blazing fury. His voice thundered, cutting through the murmurs of stunned onlookers. "I'm going to need to see 3 forms of identification and recent bank statements before we can discuss this vehicle." The demand echoed like a verdict, not just for Angela, but for everyone present, proof that suspicion, not courtesy, ruled here. His outrage wasn't sparked by any wrongdoing, but by the audacity of a woman daring to show interest in a car worth more than most homes. Then, as if to cement her status as an intruder, David summoned Mark Davis, the burly security guard, whose looming presence sent a clear message. Angela was a threat to be contained. Mark approached, hand poised over his radio, ready to enforce exclusion with cold authority. The showroom, once a temple of luxury and success, had morphed into a battleground of discrimination and hostility. And then it happened. Mark roughly grabbed Angela's arm, his grip firm and disrespectful, pulling her toward the exit like a common criminal. But Angela was no victim. With a swift, powerful motion, she tore free, her voice steady and commanding. "Take your hands off me. I'll leave on my own." The room fell silent, frozen in shock at the defiance of the woman they had so thoroughly tried to erase. In that moment, Angela embodied resilience and authority, a queen amid a court of prejudice and arrogance. Back in the solitude of her modest Honda Civic, Angela's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a simmering storm of controlled rage. She dialed Rachel Collins, her trusted assistant, her voice razor sharp and calm, the calm that precedes a tempest. "Rachel, they failed the test spectacularly," she said, each word weighted with the gravity of betrayal. This was no ordinary lapse in customer service, it was a systemic rot. A cancer eating away at the very core of the Mitchell Automotive Group's values. Within moments, her phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from legal teams, human resources, and regional managers ignited a flurry of urgent activity. Angela was mobilizing a corporate reckoning, one that would uproot prejudice and demand accountability at every level. The infamous Protocol 7 inches had been activated, the company's nuclear option reserved for crises so severe they threatened the empire itself. As the gears of justice began to turn, Angela sat poised, the architect of a cleansing storm, ready to dismantle the toxic culture that had dared to thrive under her watch. From the safety of her car, Angela watched with mounting horror as history repeated itself inside the showroom. A young black professional named Tasha Brooks stepped through the doors, dressed impeccably in a sharp business suit, radiating confidence and success earned through sheer determination. Yet, the cold indifference that had greeted Angela returned in full force. Emily Parker barely glanced up, her expression a mask of dismissive disdain, while the sales staff continued their casual conversations, deliberately ignoring Tasha's presence. David Reynolds soon appeared, his trademark smirk twisting into the same condescending posture he'd worn earlier. unleashing the same patronizing routine. Veiled suggestions that she might be more comfortable elsewhere. Demands for excessive proof of financial capability. And gestures laced with thinly veiled hostility. Angela's heart sank as she realized this was no isolated incident, it was a brutal, recurring ritual of exclusion. Every slight, every cold shoulder, every whispered assumption was a dagger aimed not just at individuals, but at the very principles of fairness and dignity. The systematic prejudice had taken root deep, infecting the culture and threatening to choke out the values Angela had fought so hard to build. Angela Mitchell returned to Prestige Motors not as the disguised outsider she had been just moments before, but as the unmistakable force of authority she truly was. Clad in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that accentuated her commanding presence. Her every step resonated with confidence and unyielding power. The polished floors seemed to reflect not only the gleam of luxury vehicles but the weight of impending reckoning she brought with her. As she strode through the grand entrance, heads instinctively lifted, conversations hushed, and the air thickened with a sudden tension. This was no ordinary visitor. Michael Carter, the district manager overseeing multiple dealerships, burst into the showroom like a man whose very heartbeat quickened with panic upon spotting her. His meticulously pressed suit now bore the creases of haste. Beads of sweat traced uneasy paths down his temple, and his eyes darted anxiously in search of an escape from the inevitable confrontation. Angela's gaze locked onto him, unwavering and sharp, and with a voice calm yet heavy with unspoken judgment. She commanded, "Michael, I want you to observe exactly how your staff treats potential customers." The simple directive hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown, forcing everyone present into uncomfortable silence. Slowly, the realization dawned on the staff that the woman they had so callously dismissed, ignored, and humiliated was not only the CEO of Mitchell Automotive Group but the ultimate arbiter of their fates. The shock was palpable. Emily Parker's smug demeanor faltered, replaced by wide-eyed terror, while salespeople frozen mid-step reeled inwardly, calculating the countless times their biases had dictated their actions. David Reynolds, once brimming with cocky arrogance, paled visibly, his false confidence crumbling under the weight of exposure. Yet, Angela was far from finished. She turned deliberately to David, offering him a sliver of hope, a final chance to salvage his dignity and perhaps redeem the taint that now clung to his name. "I'm still interested in that BMW," she stated with unwavering resolve, her words slicing through the tension like a sharpened blade. This was no mere test, it was a challenge. Could he rise above his prejudice? Or would he falter, exposing the rot at the heart of the dealership? Even with the district manager standing beside him, visibly shaken and pale, David's response was telling, a continuation of the same dismissive, discriminatory attitude that had ignited this entire ordeal. His voice dripping with condescension, he accused Angela of improper behavior, attempting to invert the narrative and blame the victim for the chaos he himself had caused. But Angela's reply was cold, precise, and merciless. "My behavior? Let's talk about behavior." The room fell into a stunned silence, every word resonating like the verdict of a judge delivering an unassailable sentence. She was poised to dissect the very fabric of their actions in front of everyone, laying bare the systemic discrimination, the betrayal of values, and the personal failings that had poisoned the culture of Prestige Motors. Reaching into her tailored jacket, Angela produced a simple business card, placing it on the gleaming marble countertop with a quiet click that reverberated ominously through the showroom. "I'm Angela Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Automotive Group," she declared, her voice steady, calm, and laced with a terrifying authority. The revelation crashed down like thunderbolt. This was the woman they had shunned and degraded. The CEO, the owner of every dealership under the Mitchell name. The realization rippled through the room, paralyzing the staff with shock and dread. Emily's jaw dropped, her carefully constructed facade shattered. The salespeople stood rigid, caught in the crossfire of their own misdeeds, and Mark Davis, the security guard who had so boldly manhandled the CEO, looked as if he wished the floor would swallow him whole. Even Michael Carter, the once confident district manager, seemed to shrink beneath the weight of the truth he'd ignored. Angela's words carried a finality that left no room for denial or excuses. "I own this dealership," she said, each syllable falling like a verdict. All 12 locations across this state. The faces before her told the story: fear, regret, and the dawning awareness that their actions had doomed their careers and sullied the reputation of a company built on respect and integrity. This was not merely a confrontation, it was a reckoning. A brutal, uncompromising lesson in accountability and justice that would ripple far beyond the showroom walls, reshaping the very culture of Mitchell Automotive Group and sending a clear message: discrimination would no longer be tolerated, and those who perpetuated it would face swift and decisive consequences. David Reynolds's facade crumbled completely as the gravity of Angela Mitchell's revelation settled over the showroom like a suffocating fog. His cocky smirk faded into a pallid mask of disbelief and desperation. Words stumbled from his lips, shaky and disjointed. "But, Thompson, wait, how do you know this troublemaker?" The disrespect in his voice was a raw exposé of arrogance and ignorance. A man clinging desperately to his crumbling tower of superiority. By calling Angela a troublemaker, David not only insulted the very CEO who held his career in her hands, but he also betrayed his deep-seated bias. Unable to fathom that the woman he had humiliated was the architect of the empire he served. Michael Carter, standing nearby, visibly tensed, his usual composure shattered by the unfolding drama. The air was thick with a mixture of dread and anticipation as all eyes locked onto Angela. She did not flinch. Instead, with a calmness that sliced through the tension like a razor, she addressed the crowd, her voice steady, resonant, and unyielding. "Robert, I want you to observe how your staff treats potential customers." That simple command rippled through the room, igniting a wave of fear that caught everyone off guard. Angela's gaze bore into David, a silent condemnation that spoke louder than any words. The arrogance and prejudice that had governed his actions were now laid bare, and the consequences would be swift and unrelenting. In that charged moment, Angela embodied the relentless force of justice, poised to dismantle the toxic culture that had festered under David's watch. She was not here to negotiate or to beg for change, she was here to command it. And as the weight of her presence settled over the staff, the fragile illusion of control that David had once wielded evaporated, leaving nothing but the stark reality of accountability. Angela Mitchell's voice echoed through the cavernous showroom, commanding attention and respect with every carefully chosen word. She addressed the stunned employees, their faces a kaleidoscope of shock, shame, and fear, as if the very walls themselves absorbed the weight of her indictment. "For the past hour," she began, her tone steady and resolute, "I have experienced the worst customer service of my life." Those words landed like thunderclaps, forcing every person present to confront the reality of their actions, not just as a series of isolated mistakes, but as symptoms of a far deeper, systemic rot. Angela's gaze swept across the room, meeting eyes that avoided hers, faces that betrayed a mixture of guilt and defiance. "This isn't simply about rudeness or a few bad days," she continued, her voice unwavering. "It's about a toxic culture that has allowed discrimination to fester unchecked. A culture that has betrayed every value this company was founded upon." The air grew thick with tension, but Angela pressed on, dismantling defenses with surgical precision. She spoke of integrity, respect, and the sacred trust between a business and its customers, trust that had been shattered here. She condemned the management for turning a blind eye, for fostering an environment where prejudice was tolerated, even encouraged. As her words settled, the room seemed to shrink beneath the weight of collective accountability. Some employees bowed their heads in quiet shame, others stared blankly, grappling with the enormity of what had been revealed. But Angela was not finished. Her voice softened just enough to inspire, to challenge, to ignite a spark of hope amid the devastation. "We will not allow this to continue," she declared. "We will rebuild, we will retrain, we will renew our commitment to dignity and equality, not just because the law demands it, but because it is the right thing to do." Plans for mandatory diversity training, revamped hiring practices emphasizing character over appearance, and strict customer service protocols were unveiled, promising a future where every customer would be treated with the respect they deserved, regardless of who they were or what they looked like. Angela's leadership shone brightest in her willingness to transform this crisis into a catalyst for change. She offered not just reprimand, but redemption, a path forward where justice and empathy would guide every interaction. And as the employees absorbed this vision, a fragile but powerful sense of renewal took root, signaling the dawn of a new era at Mitchell Automotive Group, one where character, integrity, and humanity would finally drive the true value of their business.